Welcome to the Nearshore Cafe podcast, home to the most interesting stories and people doing business in Latin America.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Nearshore Cafe podcast. I'm Brian Sampson, your host. And first, let me just give a quick shout out to our sponsor for the day. That is Nearshore Direct. Go nearshoredirect.com, a great way to find talent all over Latin America for U.S. companies. I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Melina Masnatta, her friends, and hopefully we can do this the same. We will call her Meli. Meli, so nice to have you.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's so important to me to stay here and have this chat with you.
Absolutely. So Meli, your background is really, really impressive. You've done all sorts of fun and interesting things. What I think would be interesting for the show is we talk a lot with business leaders all over Latin America. Argentina is a country that comes up quite a bit. Why don't we just start with where you are and where you grew up? Can you walk us through that?
Yes, I grew up in a little town in Patagonia, Argentina, near of the beach, and so it's a wonderful place to, have your first step and try to spread your wildness. And I think because the Patagonia is so huge in a way, and you are in very close experiences with the nature, and so I learned a lot at that time about death and life and cycles and these kind of things that in our days we talk a lot, but is something disruptive in a way. And for me it was very interesting to understand and being part of my my identity.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to spend some time in Patagonia. I was in Chalten and El Calafate. For people who've never been to those places, and also I didn't have the chance to go to Bariloche, but I've seen pictures. It's absolutely beautiful. What should people who've never been to Patagonia, how would you describe it? What would you share with them?
Okay, the landscape are beautiful, like they are a postal, a picture, like a movie, when you are in this kind of Discovery Channel. Like it's this kind of things, but at the same time you have a history, you have indigenous people who also are there and nobody talks about that. And it's very interesting because you have a mix of cultures and also people who it's very interesting to try to create a new life there. Many people who is from a city or a urban cities, they go to Patagonia to create something different. So the idea of community is very present, and for me, something that is an inspiration. And you have a lot of different idea of immigration at the same time, because you have to create something from the scratch, and that is the baseline of this way of being. And at the same time, I think people have this respect of how to create something different, but at the same time with the nature and the idea of sustainability. That is something that, again, in our days is very popular, but um, in these kind of places is part of everything. And the connection with the government at the same time, because something connected with the legal things and so on, is very new, is something that people and the town is very strong in that way. And for example, if some kind of, I don't know, oil industry wants to create something, the town and the people are always very present, and no, this is something very important to take care as humans beings, and we want to do it. And I think that is something impressive at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you still an outdoorsy type of person? Do you still enjoy hiking and doing all the outdoor type things?
Yes, but I don't know. Right now I'm in the, Buenos Aires, and it's a very huge city. But sometimes when I open my door and the window of my home, I could see, and I thinking we create mountains. The buildings are mountains in a way. We want to recreate that kind of things, and
Yeah.
it's very crazy because I have this metaphor in my mindset, and I could see that, and I always need that kind of fresh hair, uh, you know, good tomatoes and good food and good things that are in that kind of places. Here in the city, everything is very, industrial, and you couldn't have these kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I wanted to start with a topic that is quite important across the world. We talk a lot about it in Silicon Valley and the tech world, but it's certainly impacting everywhere. Is diversity and inclusion. Um, can you tell us more about how you first uh, started to think about this, and and you've obviously made this a big part of your career journey, and it's something that you speak a lot about, you write a lot about. But how did this all start?
Well, I think being part of Patagonia, where everything, the multiculturalism is very present. I think for me it was like a shift, like this is part of everything. But then when I was a teenager, I used to be a classical dancer, so I have to uh, be, travel to Buenos Aires to the Colón Theater to be part of that thing, and then I was adolescent, and I think here is something that is broken, and the thing that I connect, and right now I could see very clear, was that the women in the ballet, we have to struggle a lot, show a lot that we deserve, we are someone who could create something different. But the choreographers, most of them are men. So it's very crazy because we are like a puppet, like they say how to we have to move. And I think for me was the first time that I could see, oh, this is unfair, and why I couldn't be a choreographer, why I have to dance or show that I'm values, or I have a value. And the competition is very hard because you have a lot of women and a few men that are the partners. And so I think that for me that was the turning point to change my point of, my vision, change the sunglasses, like, okay, this is different. And then through my entire career I could find this pattern, like that was in the classical dance field. But when I start trying to connect education, and because I want to change the way we learn in the art field, I could find the same. Like women, we teach, we have this kind of roles in educations, and we are the most people working actively. But the people who decide our I don't know, how to move in this field, how to be a leader, and so on. Most of them are men. So I connect with that, like, okay, this is broken too. And a director of a school, a principal of a school, I think in US is pretty similar, and well, around the world. And I think, okay, I have to change this in a way. And through that journey, I turned my career to the technological and education field. And there I found, like, again, technological field is very pretty male. Uh, and so male create the rules, and women are the people who have to, being the best, but doing that kind of rules. Um, we have this over adaptation, and that was my turning point to create something different, and that's why I create with another group, Chicas en Tecnología, or Girls in Tech, to try to reconnect these things. But through this journey, I wake up and I could see also other kind of diversity. In technological field, we have neurodiversity, and we don't talk a lot about that. We have multiculturalism. We have another kind of field, and one thing that today is my main concern is the generational diversity, because we connect technology with young people, and it's not true, because the people who take the decision are not young. The young are the people who buy these ideas or create a part of the, I don't know, a software or something like that. And so for me was a completely journey, as you mentioned, but I think the most interesting is we are in a great moment to be a protagonism, to have a protagonism, and also to be aware that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a dynamic. They are three different concepts, but the three concepts are dynamics, and we are people who have to put it in a context, give meaning, but be very aware of the impact, and if something of this have sense or not, and is in the correct path, correct roadmap, or the pattern that we want to change. And everything for me also is connected with leadership, because we haven't got, you know, uh, these ideas connected with leadership. And indeed, the role models and so on, everything around that concept, always we work split. Like, in a way, we have leadership, and in the other hand, we have diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think we have to also connect these fields and try to get the most with this uh, reality.
Yeah. Um, I'm particularly interested because you've worked in these different institutions, in dance and then technology and other types of organizations. Um, how is the tech industry maybe the same, and how is it different when it comes to diversity and inclusion within Argentina?
Tough question. I think technology have the power to change everything, because it's in everything right now. We haven't got way of go out of the idea of technology. Um, and I think technology have a very potential to change things, because if we change, for example, a rule or something like that, the power is exponential. Um, but through the last years where the technology become more powerful, men create these kind of rules, change the rules in a way. And so, well, sorry for say this, Brian, but America, why? And with the particular things like you are who the people who is changing the things. And also I'm talking in a very privileged way because in Latin America women have differences. We have this intersectionality also. And and you're connecting with your question. I think this is a very crucial moment to try to have the tough ideas on the table, have the data, because we always say this phrase like we take decisions databases and so on, and it's not true at the end of the day because we have a lot of bias and so on. So maybe the business at the beginning of this kind of reconnection or rethinking of the purpose of the tech field, it's not going to be, very. We have to pay, and that is the thing that nobody wants to talk about it. We have to pay for the price of what we did wrong. And connecting with artificial intelligence and so on, and the technology that are in the field right now, we have a huge problem because we know that everything is very very in a hurry, changing the things, but at the end the problem is one. The problem is we have to put a stop, have the tough question, try to be a good mirror. Like, this is the mirror of the society. I- Is 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 for real, or is the mirror that we want to create of the society? Because if not, we have this huge problem. And I think that the next generation are going to say, hey, you live in this moment, what did you do for that? And I'm paying also for this problem. And I think try to be very aware of that. It's not only part of the tech field, it's also part of the government and the public sector, and each person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really changing the world for what you want it to be, for where you want to take it, and that's a great point about the mirror. Um, I remember years ago, I was head of recruiting for a tech startup in the U.S., and we were, maybe 30 or 40 people, and I brought up the topic of diversity. Maybe we should start thinking about diversity. And um, like most tech startups, also in the U.S., it was heavy male, right? Heavy male, especially engineering and product. Um, and what I heard back was, we need to worry about survival first, then we'll worry about diversity, right? We need to get our startup to a certain place, and then we'll worry about it then, right? Um, it was a hard thing to hear. Um, but I don't think that startup was by itself in saying that. I think other startups probably felt the same thing. And then you also look at who are the startup founders in the US, at least. It's mostly men. Who is receiving venture capital? It's mostly male startup founders, right? So that means you have this inertia and momentum, and then the rare companies that make it to a certain size and scale, all of a sudden now they have to change this momentum, right? Um, I'm curious if you see a similar makeup and ecosystem in Argentina. Is it similar like that, or are there any differences?
I think it's similar because we want to copy and cut. And if we want, as a startup, we want to have investors, we always are looking for this kind of US is the hub, and Silicon Valley and so on are the role models in a way. And so that is the problem for me, because as a region, not only as Argentina, we have a good possibilities to change things, especially because I always say, like, we live in the future. In a way, we have less resources. We have to do everything with zero money and so on. So we are very, you have to think out of the box, but it's part of the survival thing here. And so, in a way, we invest in, for example, in networking, in the way of how we could create a life balance and these kind of things, because we have this idea of the family is important, the time is different, everything is different as culture, and so in a way we have very good things to try to change the recipes that we want to uh, buy every day. But we have this contradiction of, well, okay, but if we want to grow up, or if we want to be popular, or have this, the cover magazine in Forbes and so on, we have to be the cool entrepreneur that go to US and they have some money and so on. And this is tricky because we have this contradiction, but we have the possibilities to change things, because as you mentioned, the system is broken in a way. And so we have to create a new solutions, but the new solutions, maybe they already exist. And the problem is where we are seeking for that kind of solutions. And sometimes I love to think about how to change the idea of, for example, Latin America being like our Silicon Valley, and something different of Silicon Valley, because we don't have to create that. We have to
That's
create
right. That's right. Yeah,
something.
you don't have to do everything, right? You have, it's still early enough where you have the
Yeah.
power to set the culture, set the tone.
Yeah, and sometimes we haven't got the technological resources, and that is a good thing because we
Yeah.
always are thinking about the low and high tech, the digital thing, but also the low tech thing, and the possibilities, the infrastructure, and it's something very powerful in a way, because sustainability is have this connection, and is very accurate, the way that we resolve things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you, we're talking a lot about Argentina, which is one of my favorite places. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the rest of Latin America, because you've also had the chance to work across these different country borders. Um, can you tell us about DEI across Latin America, and maybe trends that you'd like us to know about?
I was working for the Inter-American Bank, and we found that, for example, we have a problem here in Latin America, that is the poverty, but at the same times, the aging is a problem, the generational thing. But because we have a lot of good things connecting with the, for example, um, adolescents that are mothers, that kind of things change here. We have a lot of access and methods and supplying programs to try to aware the population about, oh, you could have this kind of health, reproductive health on your hands and so on. So that changed a lot the way of working, and also the projection of the population, because we are going to be a very old as the world, but particularly in Latin America, something that we never saw or see, people who have in the middle, or I don't know, 60 years or something like that, and but with a poverty is going to be a problem. So in a way, that is a trend to change the access of, how to change things, and this is a good thing, but we have to put a focus on that. And the other thing, I think that the idea of the multiculturalism connected with the indigenous, we have there, we are also failing for our root, because, for example, in the case of Argentina, we have a lot of immigration, so it's very different of the other countries. And also the indigenous, well, they have a lot of previous problem, and it's a whole thing, and we don't talk about that. And also we don't talk, for example, about um, African people who went to Argentina as immigrant, and how they mix it and so on. So I think that the thing connecting with the multiculturalism, and the thing that the connection that we never talk about that, we have this narrative that are very present, but we don't talk about that, and it's a problem for me. It's a problem because if our is our identity, and in a way that is a thing. The other thing is diversity connected with accessibility. um, we have this idea of everything must be very perfect, family, and because most of the countries are Catholic, and so the family with this photo of mother, father, the daughter, and the son are perfect. It's a problem also in the idea of this is not true, and we have a lot of diversity inside us families, but we don't talk about that. And the last, I think, is um, how to rethink the role of the women, as you mentioned, because it's true that, for example, Argentina is very different on Chile or Uruguay, but we have a lot of problems. We have um, murders. We have a lot of issues connecting with violence, and sometimes it's not only physical violence; it's also um, you know, this kind of micro violences or micro situation of how a boss or give you or the pay gap or these kind of things around uh, how to be a woman in Latin America. I think is a huge problem, uh, but is a was a trendy but right now it's continue being a trendy, and so we could see some little changes, at least at the government level, or campaigns or NGOs. We have that on the agenda, but the intersectionality, as I mentioned, is also the problem, because we have these mixes, these differences between cultures, and sometimes we don't talk about that.
I also wanted to ask you about Wikimedia, which is an interesting organization because it's a tech company, but it's really a nonprofit, and it's so global, although it's U.S. headquartered. What did that mean for you to work in that type of environment, and maybe how was it similar to the U.S. and how was it different having you were in the Argentina division or subsidiary? I'm not sure how it was organized.
Yeah, well, was a very interesting experience. Indeed, I'm an editor in our days. I try when I could. I try to do some different articles. For me, at that time, Wikimedia haven't got a educational program, not only in Argentina, around the world. And the main problem was the educational field. Like educators always says, "Oh, Wikipedia is the world," and is not a source, and students copy and cut information. Pretty similar as ChatGPT right now. We have the same problem. uh, 15 years later, we are at the same page. And so, um, at that moment, they say, "Oh, we need someone who create this program. Could be in Argentina." I think because it's cheaper in a way. Like I say, "Okay, yes, come on, give me the problem. I'm going to create this." But it was amazing. They give me a lot of, freedom to create and to rethink. And so at the same time that I create that program, we translate in, I don't know, most of I don't know, 300 languages around the country, around the world. And so it was a shock, like, oh my God, this is, and a teacher from, I don't know, uh, one little town in Asia is working with this material. And that is the power of Wikimedia. I think Wikimedia have this spirit that when someone connect the idea and understand the idea of Creative Commons and the idea of the freedom about technology and the commonwealth and the community, I think that for me community is everything, and everything is for free. People is volunteer, uh, are in this way working as volunteer, and and that for me was a turning point to understand how works technology for the, for the good. um, but we have again the problem, as I don't know, if someone listen this, I challenge that person to, go to Wikipedia, click on edition and try to understand how that article is created and how is something that have, is a living thing. Because you have the chat and you have the forum, and you have many people very very passionate trying to have the sources and understand if your position is good or bad, or what is going to what is going on if uh, some statement is there. And because at the same time that you are editing that, sometimes a person is taking that as the whole thing, and I think that is the moment that you understand the power and the ethical way of working in technology. Because you are not only a user, you are a producer, a pro consumer. And for me, I think we have to learn a lot of the journey that Wikimedia already done, and have a lot of, good manifests, good things like common rules, because indeed it's a huge community. But uh, talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, at the moment that I was working in this, I have, I understand that only the 8% of editors around the world were women. So we have a problem there. Only the 8%. So we create a lot of programs to encourage women to edit, but we have a lot of problems because sometimes women feel like, oh, I'm not feel so sure. And so in that moment you have the community that is telling you, be very aware and be take care of this. And so if you haven't got this identity, or digital identity very very strong, like, come on, shut up, I'm going to write and I'm going to give you the answer, I'm going to put the source, the primary source, and so on, is probably a way of saying, okay, I'm going to, this is not for me, goodbye. And that happened at that moment. And I'm not so sure if we are in a different pattern right now, but I think because this is a systematic problem.
Meli, I've got a few more questions for you, and we'll lighten things up a little bit. So at the end of last year, it was a big moment for Argentina with the World Cup. Where were you when it happened? How did you celebrate?
Oh, well, I was with my family. I have a baby. So she like, when everybody was screaming like, yeah, goal. So like, oh my god, what is going on? Where I choose to burn. Burn, this is not the correct place. And yes, was very dramatic. And I live some blocks in the near the downtown, so
Hmm.
that was a crazy thing.
Yeah.
People were screaming and jumping, and and in a way that I think also we were struggling a lot with the economical issues, the social, sorry, issues. We have a lot of issues as a society. So I think we feel this like, oh, a relief. And it's not only to win a cup, a World Cup. It's also, the life and the journey of the hero that Messi already done, and all the social players, like, they struggle a lot and so on. So you feel like this is so, being an Argentinian, you feel like, yes, suffering is part of the creation of, and you could do this. And also for us, I think, was in a way like, I we could work together, because here you have a lot of, you already know, Brian, I imagine the profile of Argentinian, like, when you are, you know in a lonely place, you have less resources, you do everything good, but you are in a way a little bit individualism. You have this problem, like, I'm Messi, I'm not a part of the team. And and I think we learned in this last World Cup that we could be a good team. It's not only, lonely leaders doing the thing. And I think that was inspiration for me, and for the whole country, because we are in the middle of something not so good, as the economical, as I mentioned, the economical issue, social issue, and so on. So we have to work together to create something differently. The last year here, sometimes you decide to don't look the problem, try to, this is not my problem, and it is. And so, being part of something bigger, be part of a community, or of the sensation of that. I'm not saying that in our days we apply that recipe, but I say, well, this was a previous, I don't know, a snapshot, but something interesting to understand that we could do things in a different way.
You've had the chance to travel quite a bit. So this could be something from the U.S. or somewhere else, but your favorite purchase, a favorite thing you bought for under $50 outside of Argentina.
Oh, I think it was a book.
A book. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was in a sale, and the name was something like "How to Change the World." Very ambitious, without money, without taking the power, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
very ambitious, the title. Like, okay, this is the key of everything in my life. Was
I
that?
love it. Well, if you can point us in the direction, or later we'll find it, we'll post it for our audience. That's great. I like
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
I like it.
Maybe we have a lot of chain makers. We don't know
Yeah,
that.
we do. We do. Well, obviously, your English is great. For me, my favorite Spanish phrase or word is as simple as ordering water. I just think it's so fun
Oh,
to say agua sin gas or agua con gas. It's so much more fun than water, right? In the States. Um, do you have a favorite English word or favorite English phrase?
oh, I think there is a word
Mhm.
like is pitfall. I don't know. I learned it in the Wikimedia community, and I think everything connected with English, and especially in American, I love the way of being so straightforward.
Yeah,
You haven't got this, the two meaning of everything. And
yeah,
here I think we have that kind of things. We
yeah.
have a lot of psychologists working on that. And this is something that I appreciate a lot. Like, okay, come on, you are saying this, and it's just that. I'm not trying to understand or read, or come on. And I love that. And the word of pitfall, I think, is connecting with how to be also very straightforward with the opportunities to change things. I
Yeah,
love the spirit to, give me feedback and let's change that. Just do it.
yeah,
And I think that is so American, and I love that. I feel like, come on, it's so simple that like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it reminds me. I think I heard somewhere from an Argentine that Argentina has more psychologists per capita than anywhere in the world. So, uh,
In comparison
it,
of friends
yeah,
also.
it's a culture of understanding meaning and talking about feelings a lot, right?
Yes. And it's so, for me sometimes it's tired, like, come on. And we have tango, and I think
Yeah,
that is this music, and the tango is always so melancholic, and we are always like crying about the thing that we never done, and the past, and I think it's good to have that,
yeah,
empathy and emotions, but we have to change things. And I think in a way we are very teenagers, because that is that is
yeah,
the brand, like being
yeah.
like, oh, so
Dramatic,
so
dramatic.
dramatic. Yes,
Yeah.
we are teenagers.
Yeah,
Like, come
but you
on.
could also say passion, right?
Yeah.
It's a country with passion. Whether it's a great time or a bad time, you know uh,
Yes.
it's a country that we have the expression wears its heart on its sleeve, right? Yeah. Well, as we wind down, Meli, this has been so much fun. As we wind down, the organization you mentioned a few times, Girls in Tech, but there's a Spanish name for it. Could you just let our audience know where to find that if they were interested in it? Where could they find that?
Yes, it's a NGO, and you can also help in a way like you could teach something. And I think chicasentecnologia.org, or for organization. Um, I think the challenging is not only to teach programming, because we are all on that. This is not useful anymore because we already use artificial intelligence to program things. So the thing is how to change the leadership. And so that's why people could help and trying to give some inspiration and give some way of, okay, we believe in teenager girl and they could do things, but also we have the chance and the opportunity to create another kind of leadership. And my dream is this connection of teenager that girl that is from Latin America, and try to have that kind of mindset in the industry, because that is why this NGO works, but also how we could, you know, give some things, not only, a donation or something like that. So we are writing a society, the history, a new history, a new chapter. And so we have that chance. And that is my invitation. You could do many things, but the first thing is get involved and try to change your mindset about think, listen. We also have some podcasts. And one thing that for me was shocking when I worked there, when you ask to a teenager girl, have you got a problem? Or for you, what is a problem? You have to be very brave, because teenagers girls in Latin America have a lot of things, and they share their issues, and they are not so simple. So sometimes they think, oh, they are a stupid generation, they don't deserve to these kind of things. But no, the problem is that we haven't got enough tools or the listening thing to try to work together to create different opportunity to these people.
Very inspiring. And I think that also inspires our audience. Thank you for sharing that. Well, as we wrap up today, I wanted to thank our sponsor again, Nearshore Direct. Go nearshoredirect.com, a great way to find talent all across Latin America. Meli, such a pleasure. I had a really fun time. Hopefully, we can have you back sometime as well.
I enjoy a lot. Thank you, Ryan, for this invitation, and I hope people, I don't know, think differently about Argentina and also diversity and technology. Thank you for this opportunity again.
Absolutely. Well, our next podcast we release every week, so we'll see you again soon. Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for joining us at the Nearshore Cafe podcast. Tune in next week for a new episode featuring another special guest with exciting stories.